Hello and welcome back to the BTF Podcast. That is the number one podcast for people who probably should talk about something other than football. We've had a couple of weeks off the podcast. We're glad to be back on iTunes and Spotify and of course YouTube as well. We've had, I guess our last couple of broadcasts have been watch-along content. And during those watch-alongs, I was joined by Mr. Greg Hollands. Greg, how are you?
Yeah, all good, man. All good. Not too bad.
And we are also joined on the show today by one of our co-hosts that hasn't been on the show for a couple of weeks, and we're glad to have him back today. Mr. Tom Nuttall-Jones is here.
How's it going? Good evening.
Yeah, all good, all very well. What shirt is that you're rocking today?
Well, it's a big game in Germany tonight. It's the Hamburg derby, St. Pauli against Hamburg. So I've got the St. Pauli shirt on tonight.
Got the St. Pauli shirt. So their fans sing "You'll Never Walk Alone," right? Is that
yeah,
true?
That's right. Yeah, a lot of clubs in Germany do. They've got it.
Yeah. What's the kind of feeling with that? Because obviously Liverpool would be like the main club, I guess, that song's associated with. But am I right in thinking Celtic fans sing it as well?
I think Celtic would claim that they're the main ones.
Okay.
I don't think anyone in Germany would say that it's like their song, but they've like taken it on. But yeah, Celtic definitely would claim it. Okay. Even above Liverpool.
Over Liverpool, yeah. And would Liverpool fans yield to that claim? No. Okay. That's fair enough.
There's a really good documentary about like Liverpool fans starting like taking on like pop songs and stuff.
Yeah.
In the 60s. So yeah, I still claim it's us.
Okay. All right, I got you. And who's likely to win that Hamburg derby?
Hamburg are definitely the stronger team, but St. Pauli are on great form at the moment. They've signed Guido Burgstaller from Schalke.
Okay.
In the summer, and he's come into his own. He scored like 8 in the last 7 games. But Hamburg have got Terodde, who's like an all-time great. He's like a promotion guarantee in Bundesliga. So yeah, it's 0-0 at the moment, but whoever can grab the goal in that one's going to be.
Yeah, I'm just looking. Yeah, 39 minutes in. Do I recognise any of the players on the pitch? Not really. Obviously, you do. I'd hope you recognise some of the players on the pitch.
Probably the most recognisable for English fans might be Leistner, who played for QPR quite recently.
Okay.
For Hamburg, but he's injured.
Yeah, and Bobby Wood, I knew.
Yeah, Bobby Wood.
B Wood, and I knew that was Bobby Wood. But yeah, okay, we'll kind of keep one eye on that game as we record. Obviously, also Everton and Southampton kicked off 10 minutes ago. Everton are leading that game 1-0 already through Richarlison. The Lidmeister General has put Everton 1-0 up at Goodison Park this evening. But I guess we should talk about the other team in Liverpool. The main team, I guess you would probably say in Liverpool. Some Evertonians would disagree with that.
I'm going to get some angry comments
that
now.
statement. But yeah, Liverpool, your club. Me and Greg have obviously been watching them this year, and they're probably who's had a better 2 months, Tottenham or Liverpool? It's not been probably too much to choose between the two, but probably slightly Tottenham, I would think.
I think it's based on expectation massively, isn't it?
Yeah.
And the rise and fall, if you could say that. Tom, I don't know if you want to weigh in. I've said plenty in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I think, like you say, it's probably based on expectation. I think we're choosing from the best of the bad bunch, best loser on recent form. It's obviously I've not been on the pod for a while. I think some of our co-hosts might weigh in that now we've won. I've like shown my face again, but no, it's been
John Aldinho wasn't able to come on the show today.
Unfortunately.
It's been a tough few months. To be honest, the game, I'm sure we'll get onto the game itself, but I wouldn't say we've turned a corner, despite the 3 points. There's a lot to obviously go into the reasons why we haven't been as good as we have in previous years. But yeah, I'm sure that's been covered as well on the on the recent podcast too.
Yeah, I think it's quite tough to kind of quantify maybe how bad this season has gone, or like how big the downfall has been because of those factors that you kind of alluded to, and that the injuries, and Henderson's now added to that list of key players that are injured, and I think it is very, very difficult to kind of objectively say, right, Liverpool have done this wrong and this wrong and this wrong, and that's why they're in the position they are in. Like, I personally don't think they've performed particularly bad. They've just had results have kind of gone against them, where maybe it was those kind of 50-50 fixtures where it could go either way, and generally this year it has. If it could go against them, it's kind of gone against them. So I think all the people kind of calling for I don't think there was too many people calling for it, but anyone calling for Klopp to kind of leave or to be kind of put out of his position, I think is absolute nonsense in the position that you're in. I mean, would you rather be in a kind of a struggling Klopp team this year than to lose him at all for
100%.
5, 6, 7 years to come, maybe?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, there was around, obviously he had a family bereavement that was reported a couple of weeks ago, and that was in the aftermath of another loss. And I think there was some rumours going around with a few WhatsApp chats that I'm on that he actually resigned, and it just like puts into perspective. Like, I mean, it was obviously ended up being complete nonsense, but it just puts into perspective like how terrible that would be. And yeah, like you say, the performances, they obviously haven't been to the standard of the last few years, but I think what the game yesterday brought home was how similar it was to some of the games that we have lost.
Mm-hmm.
And all the difference was a couple of missed chances, where yesterday we obviously put them away, got a bit of luck with the second one. And I think that's, in some cases, that has been the difference. It's the old adage, isn't it? Like, defense wins championships.
Mm-hmm.
Attack wins games, defense wins championships, and that's what we're seeing. We've just not been in that championship winning form because we just don't have a good defense at the moment. And that's all you can really say.
Yeah. What's the likelihood that you do actually spend at some point on defense, or is it literally a case of let's just get these guys back to full fitness? Because it is a kind of a weird situation that Liverpool are in, where they have probably adequate, more than adequate defensive kind of personnel, but you are in this injury crisis, and it's to the point where you're running on less than even 2 decent centre backs a game. That's why you've had Fabinho and Henderson playing back there, and I don't know whether you could attribute maybe some of their injuries as well to playing out of position. I'm not really sure how. I probably, my knowledge of sort of conditioning is next to nothing really, but players surely are conditioned to play in the positions that they specialise in, and someone like Henderson or Fabinho, I don't know whether that could.
Yeah, I think it's a fair point. I mean, you're turning in a different way, you're like running in a different way. I think Fabinho has had a variety of injuries, so probably couldn't put all of those down to that. But Henderson, obviously, I think it's a groin injury that he's got.
So you think lots of twisting, turning,
exactly.
running sideways, running with your back to goal.
What you said about whether or not we'll spend. Obviously, we've got the 2 guys in January. I think they are really stopgaps. Jury's still out on Kabak. Most of the people I've spoken to recently, like from his early performances, have said like we won't be taking our option to sign him permanently. Right. But it's tough for a young player to come in to a team that's kind of under the cosh, and there's a lot of pressure for him to suddenly be the answer to all the problems, which obviously he's never going to be. But yeah, it hasn't looked too good so far. Even last night, there was a few odd positional things that he did that were picked up on. I think the real worry is that, like, obviously Van Dijk's injury is a one-off, but Gomez and especially Matip have been like really injury prone throughout the time that they've been with us. Gomez has had like quite a few long-term injuries. Matip only seems to be able to deal with like one game a week, and then that's if he can like actually stay. That's the best you're going to hope for, and that's if he doesn't get like a long-term injury like he has now. So yeah, I mean, looking at all of that, we probably could do with another one or maybe two defenders, and that's if one of the two that we got in January do actually end up working out. So yeah, it's a tough one. Obviously, we're just kind of like damage limitation for the rest of the season. See how far we can go in the Champions League. You know, on paper anyone can win that, and we've certainly won it with a worse team that we've even now with the injuries than we've got. But it's that defense again, like. Even that run in 2005 was on the back of like some amazing defensive performances. So yeah, we'll see. It's tough. We'll probably need to have that championship winning form to even finish in the top four. And hopefully the win last night was the start of an upturn.
What was, I know we spoke about, I think on one of the Warzone podcast type things that we did, but Liverpool's lowest ever finish in the Premier League, you said it was like top 10, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, eighth.
So yeah, is that? I mean, I don't think you're going to finish lower than eighth, but at one point, probably this month, it was a definite possibility.
I think what's happened this year as well is like looking at some of the teams that are playing above them at their usual level. I'm sure West Ham wouldn't have expected to be where they are at this stage of the season, even the most optimistic West Ham fan. Everton. Probably, with the signings that they made, definitely expect an improvement, but, they're up there pushing for top four as well. So it's just one of those years where it's probably the worst possible time to be fighting for that fourth to fifth borderline, because you've got so many competitors doing it. And obviously Spurs will want to be up, like Spurs are down with us sort of off the pace a little bit at the moment, but they'll be wanting to get there. Leicester seem to be perennial sort of contenders for that now as well. So yeah, it's tough, and sort of if you look at the teams that would be above us in eighth, it's all those teams. Obviously Villa are doing slightly better. I think they've dropped off the top four pace a little bit compared to the start of the season, but they're doing a bit better than they did last year. So no, I think I'd still be hopeful that we'll be a bit better than that. But yeah, it's a crazy year. And obviously this week we've seen the government give their sort of timescales for COVID. So that's kind of like put the final nail in the coffin of having like any hope of getting fans back in the ground, which I think has like impacted us probably more than average, at least more than most. I think some of our fans would say so. It's probably a tough couple of months ahead. I think Thursday's really big. I think if we can get a result there, it kind of means that the Sheffield United result isn't like a false dawn, and then we can start to get a bit of momentum. But sort of another loss after that win sort of completely cancels it out and back to square one.
Yeah, we will be covering that the game that you mentioned there on Thursday. It's Chelsea, right?
Liverpool, Chelsea.
Chelsea. Yeah. We'll be covering that on YouTube, so make sure you tune in for that and watch along with us. I agree. I mean, it's a weird one this season because there was distinct points in the Premier League season where we went, Liverpool are now top of the league and they're gonna run away with the league again. We had the same with Spurs. Like Spurs were at the top of the league at one point, and we were like, "This is the year." Jose's going to do it with Spurs, and like you say, those two teams now are down. Sort of, if you take the game in hand, like the games in hand into account, and assume those as wins for Aston Villa and Everton, I think it is Spurs in 9th and Liverpool in 8th by my working out. But yeah, incredible Premier League season, and to think below that you still got Arsenal as well. It's a mad year for the Premier League. I think we should talk about like Spurs as well, though. Spurs had a good, comfortable, kind of healthy win yesterday, and Gareth Bale, I think he's been involved. I think I saw a stat. It was like 8 goals that he's had a direct involvement with in the last 4 games or 3 games, something like that.
Yeah, the last 4 was the big comparison.
Yeah,
he's been brilliant. He's as well as beyond the performance, is how he's been talking and how Jose's been talking. They seem to have. I don't know if it felt like they. Because I think I've said on the podcast a lot, Bale didn't really feel like a Jose signing. It felt like a Daniel Levy, get him in, sell some shirts, that kind of thing. And if it works, brilliant. But if not, But I think they've both been quite complimentary of each other recently. Bale is saying that he feels better. He knows how his body is, and he knows that he's feeling a lot better. Jose's saying that obviously if you have a fully fit Gareth Bale, you play him whenever you can. So... And the same with Delhi, I think. It's really weird. As soon as the January transfer window closed, it feels like they all had a little bit of a get-together of like, right, this is us now.
We're the team. We're the team that can do this, yeah.
100%. So I think the same goes for Liverpool. The season is a long one. I think there's still things that we can get out of the season. It's difficult once you're in the mix of it now to see what could still be won. But, yeah, I mean, the Burnley game was exactly the kind of football that, with this team that we have, we need to be playing like. Because instead of getting that early goal, because I saw the early goal, they scored it before I could even load up the stream, totally legal stream, and I saw it and I was like, this is going to be bad news because early goal, we'll sit back and we'll concede in the 85th. It's just written that way. But we kept pressing, we kept charging it down. Lucas Moura scored for fuck's sake. Like everyone was hungry, getting the good balls up and going. And I think that Gareth Bale was a huge proponent of that. So it's exciting. It's exciting. I think that they needed that for their self-esteem more than 3 points on the board. I think there was a real lack of confidence, especially in the Premier League after a couple of run of games. But, getting back into Europa League as well, we've got a very favourable draw with Dynamo Zagreb, I think it is.
Zagreb, yeah.
And we can, with this team, we could still get something out of this season. I'm of the opinion of, look, let the Premier League do what it does, see what we can get out of that. But Europa League is there for the taking. If there's a man that can get us to that final, Jose did it with a worse Man United team, in my opinion. We've had a lucky, favourable run of games. Let's make the most of it.
Would it be, if they get through the Zagreb double header, do they go? Is it quarterfinals at that point? Right? Or is it even?
Yes. Yeah.
So they're in the last. They're in the last 16 at the moment, and
yeah. And beyond the favourable draw for us, we've got some big names going against each other that will knock out big competitors. You've got United against Milan. You've got Arsenal and Olympiacos. Big names that will be falling out of the competition, which really helps us.
Yeah, I should say Everton have gone 2-0 up. I'm not sure who scored the goal. I've got Richarlison down here on this team sheet as D. Richarlison. What's his first name?
They'll just be like a long string of Brazilian names.
Yeah. I'll see if
one of which begins with D, obviously.
Yeah.
No, I think the thing with Spurs in the Europa League is that, like, I don't think, Greg, that you'd argue that, like, Jose considers himself like Tottenham through and through.
No, he's a quick fix.
At least not at this stage, but like, I can't imagine there's many or any managers that have won that tournament with 3 different clubs.
Yeah.
And so that'll be a source of motivation for him to like take that competition like even more seriously than he would otherwise. To put himself in that, he obviously likes to talk about his his 3 titles with Chelsea and he's obviously done that in the past. His three finger thing that he's got. So for him to be able to say like, who else has done this? I think that's a great little edge that you'll have as well in the rest of the tournament.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, I should just mention that I think the Everton goal was scored by Michael Keane, but it's been ruled out by VAR, so it is only still 1-0. Just in case you're wondering, if the game ended like 3-1 to Southampton or something like that, and you're going, what? They've just said Everton went 2-0 up. I should make that amendment. I completely agree though with the whole Spurs situation. I think as well he's going to throw everything he's got at that League Cup final. And that at the end of the day, that is a route into Europe. And I think he'll be thinking about that game constantly. You mentioned Tom as well. You mentioned defence has been the secret to success in UK football over the last few years. Is that just what Pep's found this year with Ruben Diaz and at City?
Absolutely. I mean, City fans will tell you that they weren't able to keep pace with us last year because Laporte was injured, and there's probably a lot of truth to that. But in this season, they seem to have found an even more like winning combination. And it's hard to think of a team that's won the Premier League that didn't have a really solid centre-back pairing.
Yeah.
And that's what they've got. And, they just look absolutely unbeatable at the moment.
Yeah.
I can't remember when we predicted our Champions League winners at the start of the season. I can't remember. I think I said Juventus, to be honest, but
I'd have to go back and check it, but I'm 95% sure I said City.
Yeah, we both said City.
Yeah. I mean, the way that they're playing again, it's their defense. They've managed to win like how many games is it now? 18 games in a row mostly without a striker. So it's clear where the strength's
game's
from.
being won. Yeah, for sure. I think Portugal are a huge, I think they've got to be up there, probably in the top 2 with France for the favourites for the Euros for me, just based on all, Diaz now coming in as well at the back, and Cancelo's playing really well, and you've got that Pereira guy at Leicester as well, should be fit for the Euros. I think Pepe's still playing for the national team, and obviously the big dog himself, Ronaldo. I saw a stat yesterday that Ronaldo, I think, has scored like 42% of Juventus's goals this year, which is probably why they're not top of the league, because they're relying on a 36-year-old to as their main supply of goals. But I think Ronaldo will arrive this summer at the Euros in as good of physical condition that he can at his age. I do think Portugal will be a safe bet if you're looking to back one team.
Well, they've got the blueprint as well, haven't they? Sorry to interrupt you, Tom. They've won it last. Was it last time?
They're the holders.
They're the so they've got the blueprint as well. I mean, I don't know how much their team has changed since then. I can't imagine massively. I don't know if it's the same coach or anything like that, but
it will be the same coach, I think. Tom,
you'd think, yeah, but
I'll double check that while you're.
But yeah, I'd say second favourites behind France, 100%.
Yeah. Tom, what's your thoughts on?
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, when you said the big dog, I assume you meant Diego Jota, who, before he got injured, was probably one of the form players in the league. And
true, very true, actually.
Close to a return. Apparently, he was very close to coming back last night, but he got an illness overnight. But he was in the travelling squad, so hopefully, going to see him against Chelsea on Thursday. So viewers should check in for our reactions to that, and hopefully his return to the pitch, and hopefully he can provide a little bit of a spark for us, because he certainly did at the start of the year.
100%. Yeah, their most recent lineup is actually ridiculous. So they've got their most recent lineup was Patricio. Then a guy called Rui at left back, then Ruben Diaz, Ruben Semedo, and Nelson Semedo at the back. Then a midfield of Bruno Fernandes, Danilo Pereira, and João Moutinho, and then Jota, Ronaldo, and João Felix up front.
It's just silly.
And then you're talking, we didn't even mention Bruno or João Felix either. So, and then Pedro Neto, Jose Font, Rui Silva, William Carvalho, Ruben Neves. Anthony Lopez, the Lyon goalkeeper, João Cancelo, Bernardo Silva. They have an embarrassment of riches. So, and it is the same coach, by the way, as well. He's been manager since 2014, Fernando Santos. So, yeah, that'll be interesting. I think, does on the on the legend scale, and you've got your Pele and your Maradona and who've all won World Cups, would 2 European Championships, would that mean as much as 1 World Cup for Ronaldo in the history books?
Yeah.
You think so?
I think it probably depends who you're asking, because certainly from our side, like the European side, like none of us could tell you how many Copa Americas like Pele or Maradona won. Yeah. So maybe if you went to Brazil or Argentina and said, "Oh, Ronaldo's won 2 European Championships, he's above your guy now," they'd say, "What's it? Got not asked about the European Championship, mate." But I mean, he's already up there, isn't he? Even I'd say that. Mm-hmm. I don't think necessarily like winning that trophy is the be all and end all of what puts you at the top, because I think Messi's probably run out of chances to win it now, and he's up there. So I mean, obviously it adds to his legacy if he did it, and I'm sure he'd like to make up for like missing most of the last final. Yeah,
exactly. He was on the sidelines, wasn't he? Giving his input. Staying on the subject of Portugal, Greg, you shared an interesting tweet earlier about the Matt Doherty transfer. Do you want to just fill people in on the kind of the headline of that one?
So basically Matt Doherty, we bought him. We were conned out of 16 million for him, but it turns out that only 10 million went to Wolverhampton Wanderers, who we bought him from, and 6 million went to the agent, I suppose, for Matt Doherty. Is it his agent or the Wolves?
I mean, he's technically Doherty's agent, but he's a super agent. Basically represents probably everyone at Wolves.
Probably, Jorge Mendes, was that the one? He
made good pronunciation.
Made 6 million out of him, which
is crazy.
It's crazy when you consider the player that Matt Doherty's. The best thing about Matt Doherty's transfer to Tottenham is that he made Sergio Aurier slightly better. Apart from that, he's brought absolutely nothing.
I think he looks a bit like that, the Bazinga guy from like JJ.
Sidemen.
Yeah, Sidemen's
Ethan.
Friend. Yeah, he does. He reminds me of him whenever I see him. But
look, I I watched the training videos and it seems like he and Gareth Bale get on well, which is cool.
I like that every Spurs player is judged on the basis of how well do they get on with Gareth Bale.
Yeah. Comfort him. If he approves, then that's fine. Keep him.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm with you on that. I think we kept Lovren for a season or two more just because he was best mates with Salah.
There you go. Yeah. He's a cheerleader a little bit, and he did like a good promo video when he joined, deleting his tweets about Arsenal. That was all cute, and but fuck me, he's a sprinter with football boots, but even then he's just not got the athleticism to get up and down. You can argue, as I said in the group chat earlier, there is an argument that he's playing in a different position and different system and all of that, but you need to have a bit of adaptability. You need to be able to adapt, especially this point of the season. And he makes schoolboy errors, stupid mistakes.
I mean, in many ways, it's the same argument that Gareth Southgate held against Connor Cody for a long time in not bringing him into the England team sooner, because Wolves play that. Wolves kind of adapted that back five approach. I mean, Tom, you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but there wasn't too many teams in the league. I know when Sarri came in, he sort of had Alonso and Victor Moses playing those positions, but Nuno was at least one of the early adopters of this five at the back that's now fairly common in the Premier League. But Doherty's obviously gone from being in a five, playing kind of as a winger almost, to having to do both defending and attacking in a Jose system, and it doesn't really.
He's just not got the athleticism for it.
Yeah,
it's just not there, and it's a shame because it is a real Jose signing. I mean, he said that He signed him because that's one less great player to play against. That kind of mentality with it.
Yeah,
it's like,
yeah.
Fucking hell.
Yeah. It's I just can't believe those. I mean, 6 million. You're talking almost probably quick maths, like 40% of the transfer fee going to the agent in that transaction. So
it's mad. Yeah.
And we looked a bit into the early years, or the how Jorge Mendes came to be what he is now, and this super agent. And apparently he was a kind of a failed footballer that didn't make it into any of the clubs in Portugal, and then he became a nightclub owner, and then through this nightclub, or through a series of nightclubs or whatever, met Nuno, the goalkeeper that was the goalkeeper back then and is now the Wolves manager. And apparently Nuno was his first big transfer that he kind of brokered, and then from then he was part of a, probably most of the Portuguese deals that have existed since, and particularly obviously including Ronaldo's move to replace David Beckham at Man United back in 2003, 2004, from Sporting. So it seems like an interesting story. I'm sure that there'll be at least Portuguese language based documentaries about this guy out there, and I hope that someone at Netflix is watching this and looks at maybe doing a documentary about that. But it's certainly a strange situation with maybe where Wolves are now, and having
just saw a little cattail.
Yeah, is she in here?
I think she looked.
I just saw the door go. I was like,
okay, maybe
she had a look and then left again.
Okay, but it is an odd situation that, and it's strange though that I didn't realize Nuno was there kind of from the ground floor with Jorge Mendes or George Mendes. So yeah, probably I wouldn't. Well, don't want to slander anyone, but I wouldn't be surprised if Nuno maybe saw a little bit of that money, or will do at some point from that Matt Doherty transfer through some properties in Portugal.
At least someone benefits from it, whether it's us or Nuno or
exactly. But yeah, I guess there was another subject that we sort of briefly talked about today as well, and in the group chat. Is this Zlatan and LeBron situation, which I actually, until I think Greg, you posted it again, I hadn't even heard anything about it. Now, Zlatan is, my view on Zlatan is he's one of those people that has sort of established a brand and a character for himself, and he's kind of, I don't think it's actually his personality. I think it is just him trying to put across the brand of Zlatan, and he's become very, very outspoken. I mean, I think it's because he knows he's kind of in a relatively untouchable situation at the end of his career, but yeah, I don't know exactly what he said about LeBron. Can you elaborate maybe a little bit?
So essentially, I think that it was brought up by the journalist, really, by name, LeBron James of basketball, of course, over in America. And it started off with Ibrahimovic appreciating, he's a great basketball player. And then basically singling him out by saying it just annoys Zlatan when he's seeing these sports stars or celebrities, he used sort of generalized term for when they get to a platform to get into politics and talk about all these things. And basically the line was, like, stick to what you're good at.
Yeah. And it was, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but it was in relation to the Chinese treatment of Muslims?
This is where I don't know. I think, okay, so the Zlatan clip is quite broad. I don't think it was about anything in
or was it Trump?
Particular. I'm really not sure. I don't know what the journalist question was. The only clip I saw was Zlatan's reaction.
Yeah. I was under the impression it was more to do with the Black Lives Matter stuff.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
right.
I feel pretty strongly about this because, first of all, anyone who describes like Black Lives Matter or just generally civil rights, like efforts to improve civil rights as political, like really winds me up. Like if you see that as political, like your politics are messed up. Zlatan is one of the most outspoken people in sports. He's spoken about political things before. When he was at PSG, had a go at the French president and said that I do more for France than him because I pay so much tax. So he's not shy of saying things that are political. Not to mention like all the things that all the endorsements that he comes up with, which again is not stick to what you're good at. It's pipe up whenever you want and make a bit more money out of it. So like for LeBron to be doing all this stuff that's clearly has like an amazing amount of merit to it, and it, shouldn't be described as political, for someone who's so outspoken to say like basically parroting like the Fox News mantra of like shut up and dribble, is just such a disgrace, and it's so disappointing to see, because I agree that like this Zlatan brand, and I almost wonder like how much of the stuff that he comes out with is just, his agent or his entourage, like sort of planning it, and kind of it's preempted. And, because when you read his book, he's got quite a humble background, and he does come across as quite humble, albeit that book's a few years old now. But when it comes to something like this, if that is the case, and if you're asked by your team, or if it's kind of a pre-planned thing, are you going to come up with this? We're going to generate some interest or generate some publicity. Like, he should still have the option to say like, no, that's nonsense, and I'm not going to get involved in this. So yeah, it's a big disappointment. It's not a big surprise, because, as I say, he's generally a bit of a rent-a-gob. But yeah, when it comes to something like this, it's too much.
Yeah, I think as well he's had the in terms of a newsworthy aspect as well. Obviously, he's had the run-ins with Lukaku, and he made the comments about Lukaku doing voodoo stuff in the changing room, and that was kind of, there was a big race row with that, and I think that in terms of a news angle, they will look at that and they'll go, okay, LeBron James, one of the biggest African American sports stars, Zlatan's, telling this guy to shut up and play basketball and don't have an opinion on politics. I can definitely see why people are kind of, there's a bit of backlash on Zlatan right now, and I agree with it. I agree with you, Tom, as well. Like, anyone that's doing something or supporting a movement that is solely there to forward kind of human rights and make the world a better place is just it is what it is. It's sort of but I don't know what happens with him. Every day I see a quote from guy just seems to be talking at the moment. Like every day on top of our soccer, there's some Zlatan quote about something shit that is someone's asked him about, and he's just given like a really controversial answer. And like you say, I think it probably is that entourage thing. Greg?
I think he loves just saying it for the sake of being controversial. I mean, I've never exactly what you say. You see Twitter all the time going on about it, and it's always like, oh, Zlatan, the gods, like goat, and everyone celebrating. He's just a wanker. He happens to be really good at football. Yeah, okay. But I was looking up on it, and there's a whole controversy with the statue that was built with him, and then buying shares in Bromby when he's a Malmo boy. All of these things, and it's like my opinion is that he's very much out for Zlatan, and I think that he's getting increasingly aware that any minute now he's going to retire, and he will become completely irrelevant, because he's only relevant now while he's playing football and while he is playing well, but he's just going to be a bitter old bloke after he retires. Really. You could tell I was going for a different word there, but I'll keep it PG. Because no one's going to touch him. No one's going to want his punditry or his views on football. I don't even know his opinions on football and the actual playing style of football. I only know his opinions on Zlatan and what Zlatan doesn't like.
Yeah. Yeah, it's also, it's true. Like, it'd be hard to, in, 20 years down the line, if you're trying to explain to, I don't know, like an 18-year-old or something, like what was Zlatan's playing style or like what sort of system did Zlatan flourish in, it's quite difficult. Like he is a very individual. There aren't
he
many
scores goals.
There aren't many players out there like him. He does have like a unique skill set, and I think a lot of his genius, if you want to call it genius, has come from the motivational side and making his teammates work hard around him and doing all that. But it's I think I'm probably ready for a footballing world without Zlatan now, I think.
I don't think there's any coincidence or any secret behind the fact that he only ever stays at a team for 2-3 years and then goes off. I can't imagine he's great for a dressing room. For sure when he's scoring goals and all of that, but fuck me, you get sick of him, wouldn't you? Yeah.
He's definitely he'd certainly be a dominant figure in the dressing room, put it that way. But we'll see where that goes. Yeah, I mean, he's probably AC Milan could win the league this year, and then you never hear the end of him because he'll be like, "Oh, I went back to Milan and I got the first title after what? It's got to be 8-9 years, maybe, Tom, since Milan lost."
Yeah, on the pitch, you can't really fault him. He came back, I think, of January last year, and he turned them. Their form even last season was incredible after he joined, and he seems to have really given them a kickstart. It was. I mean, it was. I'm pretty sure it was. It was Allegri who won the league with them last, but that was when they had Thiago Silva. So we're talking 2011.
Yeah.
And they didn't. They looked like they were bound for mid-table for the foreseeable future. So on the pitch, fair play to him, but off the pitch, it's just
rein it in a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair enough. Let's do a few predictions for games coming up this week. So first up, we have Man City and Wolves tomorrow. Greg, first up.
It's City, isn't it? It's just City. 3-0.
3-0, Tom, for that one.
2-1.
To City?
Yeah.
All right, we'll go for a City win. I'm going to go for a City win as well. I think just the 1-0. I think they will just grind it out. They seem to be a team that can do that this year.
Have we got Champions League this week or next week?
I think it's next week.
Yeah.
Women's Champions League this week. If you want to predict any of those, let me know.
Wolfsburg will win.
What's that?
Wolfsburg, they'll win.
Yeah, Wolfsburg and who is it? Potsdam Turbine or something like that. They always used to be really good. Potsdam. I don't know whether they're still. St. Polten are very good, but Wolfsburg traditionally are very good, and Lyon as well.
Lyon have won the French league 21 years in a row.
Stupid
like
Lyon
that.
are brilliant. Their winning team is brilliant. Now we have Crystal Palace taking on Man United on Wednesday. I think this game is 8:15 kickoff. Palace coming off the back of maybe one of the worst games of the season for a neutral fan or for a fan of Palace or Fulham at midday on Sunday.
Everyone.
At Selhurst Park, Man United turning up, also coming off the back of a terrible 0-0 on the same day. What's happening with that result? We've had some really, really kind of blockbuster fixtures there at Selhurst Park between those two teams in the last 5 years. I'm thinking back particularly to the one where Matic scored a volley in the last minute to win it, I think 3-2 for United. But Roy Hodgson's Palace, could they take any points away from United in that game? And I'll come to you first, Tom.
No, I think obviously we're seeing the season of away wins this year for obvious reasons, and Man United have taken that to a new level, and their away form has been outstanding, and I don't see Palace being the one to change that. So I'd say 2-0.
Okay, Greg?
I'm going to go... This is what I hope happens a little bit. I'm going to go 1-1.
Okay. I don't know. I think it will be dependent on Zaha, because he didn't play at the weekend, and I'm assuming that it was an injury rather than a ban. He's on the injury list. I mean, Palace's injuries, Hennessy, MacArthur, Tompkins, Sacco, Schlupp, Connor Wickham, Nathaniel Klein, and Wilf Zaha. For a team like Palace, and if you're that sort of maybe, I don't know, traditionally like 8th to 17th in the league, that many injuries is can be quite damning. So I think United will win this game. If Zaha's not playing, United win this easy. And I think it could be, I'm going to go with 4-0, I think. How many did Liverpool score there earlier in the season? 7. And it was 0, wasn't it? 7-0.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't think they'll hit 7, but I certainly think coming off the back of a lot of criticism as well for Solskjaer's United and the way they set up against Chelsea this weekend. So I think United will kind of have a point to prove being back in London.
Seems like a long time ago now.
Yes, yeah. And then the final game that we'll get a prediction for, we won't do the Liverpool-Chelsea predictions because we'll obviously have those. We'll put those in just before we do the watch-along. But Fulham take on Spurs. This is the 6 p.m. game on Thursday. There's 2 6 p.m. games actually happening at the time. You've got West Brom and Everton, and then Fulham and Spurs. This is at Craven Cottage. I will give my prediction for this one first. I think we take a draw in this game, and I would go for a 1-1 draw with Fulham, or for Fulham. So I'll come to Tom, the neutral, first on this one.
I think after the last game, scoring boots are on for Spurs, so I think it's going to be 3-1.
3-1 to Spurs, and then Greg, thoughts?
Yeah, if we come out like Burnley, it'll be 3-0.
Okay. Yeah, it's interesting. Like Fulham have only behind Man City. Man City have conceded the least goals since Christmas. I think it is. It might even be since. Yeah, I think it's since Christmas. Fulham are the next best defensive team. So we don't really leak many goals. So I would be surprised to see us concede 3 at home. But at the same time, we probably don't have the, we're not clinical enough to beat Spurs either. So I'm going to still stick with my 1-1 draw. It'll be Lookman and be a weird goal from Spurs by someone like Højbjerg.
I really want to see. Okay, I've got my wish of Bale starting with Son and Kane, and just to complete the puzzle, I just want to see Dele instead of Lucas Moura.
Yeah,
that's what I want to see as that top 4, and then we're flying. I think. Yeah. But Lucas Moura's a weird one, man. I kind of hate him because he is a weird one. It's like he's been playing brilliantly recently, but apart from that, he's living off of Ajax. Totally, he's a sweet guy. Minute. Yeah, he's the hat trick. Yeah, he's a sweet kid, and he's great. But fuck me, and Lamella. Do you see the thing going around this week where it was Gareth Bale did more on that game than Eric Lamella has done in the last 8 years?
Yeah, I do feel a bit sorry for Lamella, but yeah, you're probably right.
He's been injured and stuff, but he just fucking ball rolls. Just ball rolls. He's a great runner.
Yeah. Did they buy him in for? He was in from Roma, was he, or was he?
Yeah, Roma.
Yeah,
30 million.
Okay. But yeah, I don't know. I do like the goals that Bale's scored in the last the second goal that he scored yesterday, was that's the sort of goal that only Bale scores, and I think his goal in the Europa League as well.
Yeah, 100%. And cutting back a bit.
He can just hit the ball on his left foot better than or as well as anyone in the league.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think once, or if he can get maybe some of those other physical attributes back, because I think what I would want to see is Bale breaking through and scoring goals when there's a deadlock. Because I'm not sure we've quite seen that yet. Obviously, he scored the opening goal yesterday, but it was a weird sort of. It was a great cross and fairly good movement in the box, but it was more of a tap-in at the time. And when I think back to Bale before he went to Real Madrid, it was Spurs are about to draw or about to lose a game and Bale's just banging in goals like in the top corner, like out of nowhere. But that might be something that is not just the way the Premier League is now, and the standard of the Premier League is probably not necessarily possible. But I hope that we get that. We get to see a bit of that Gareth Bale back, because he's a generational talent, and
100%.
The more we can see of him playing well in the Premier League, the better. But yeah, I think that's it for this week's podcast. I think it's been good to be back on the old audio version of the podcast, and I hope you guys have enjoyed listening. As we mentioned, we will be doing a live watch along for Chelsea versus Liverpool this Thursday, and hope to see as many of you there as possible in the comments section, giving John Miller and Ronaldinho a bit of stick. Tom and Greg, thanks as ever for joining me tonight.
Thank you
on the show.
Cheers, Dan.
And guys, we'll see you all on Thursday. So have a good couple of days until then.